photographer cell is our reuse identifier. Otherwise, we're ready to go. So if we had stuff in our database and we hit run right now, this would work. That's all we need to do. Okay, incredibly small amount of code to hook up a table view to core data. But of course, we have no data in our database. There's nowhere in our code are we querying from Flickr or loading stuff in. And so I'm going to use the opportunity of our needing that to introduce you for the first time to your application delegate. So I've always been moving these files down to supporting files, don't look at them, you know. And so now I'm going to show you a little bit what's in here. So your application delegate is kind of like, it is watching what's going on at the highest level of your application. It sees your application has launched. Okay? It sees that your application has resigned being the active application. It sees that your application is entering the background. Okay, we know that in iOS, the apps, when you go to another app, they don't quit. They just kind of move into this background state. Right? So you can find that. You can find it when you move back into the foreground. If you become the active application, if someone's quitting your application, you find that out as well. So it finds out all these things. And we're going to learn about those later in the quarter. So I'm going to delete all those now. But we are going to look at this one. This is did finish launching with option. So here it's telling you your application finished launching. Okay? This is a great time to do things like kick off some Flickr fetching or something. All right? Now, if I'm going to be doing my Flickr fetching here in my application delegate, I need the context. Okay? Now, in your homework, you're going to do that by creating a UI managed document. But here I have a little piece of code that I got from that other template that I was telling you about that I'm going to bring in here. It looks like this. It's a little category. And it has this method, create main queue managed object context. So that's a managed object context that attaches to a database, the database for this app. This only has one, luckily, and gives me a queue, and it's on the main queue, just like a UI document one is, so that it can be, code can be similar. And then also I can save it. Now, I don't need this save context message for UI managed document because it auto-saves. But here, if I create this managed object context not using a document, then I have to do that. So this is, like I said, the other way to do it, which you're not going to do for your homework, but I just wanted to show you. I really just didn't want to show you the UI managed document because I want you to figure that out on your own. So we're going to use this one. Okay, so I've added this. This is a, you can see the Photomania app delegate category. So it's essentially added these two methods to my app delegate. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I am just going to, first of all, let me create some properties. So this is some stuff that I just created, some properties that I need and stuff like that. For time, I'm just going to put them in here, but as we use them, I will refer to them. But one of them I'm going to use right here is this photo database context. So I'm going to keep a property in my app delegate, which is the context that we're going to be fetching into and that we're going to be reading out of. So I'm going to set that right here, photo database context equals self create, oh, got to import that, import Photomania MOC, that I'm just importing the category header file that has that create in there. So create main queue managed object context. So again, you're going to set this as well, but you're going to set it from your UI managed document. So now I have a context and I want to start doing some Flickr fetches. So I'm going to call another method here, start, what did I call it? Start Flickr fetch, I think. Okay, so that's just going to fire off a Flickr fetch as soon as we launch. Okay, we just launched. Get this message gets sent to us when we launch, and I'm just going to fire off a Flickr fetch. So that's one of the times we're going to fetch is as soon as we launch. We're going to fetch some other times, but we're going to fetch as soon as we launch. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here so we can look at it instead of my typing it in line by line. And this is something where it's got some stuff that I didn't really teach really in detail in lecture, but you should mostly be able to understand. Mostly what this is doing here is it creates a session. So you know about URL sessions. So I'm creating this session. This session is a little different than the one we created before because look, it has a delegate. You see that? We didn't specify a delegate before. Okay, we had delegate nil. And why do we want a delegate and why are we making it self? Well, that's because we want these Flickr fetches that we're starting off in the background, if they finish while our application is no longer running, we want it to launch our application and tell us. Or if we're in the background, we're not the application the user is using right now, and these URLs, Flickr comes back with some information, we want it to wake us up a little bit and let us process it. Okay? So by doing this delegate along with a background session, we can do that. So I'm going to show you this delegate implementation. So I create this session, and then all I'm doing here in Start Flickr Fetch is creating a task and resuming it. So this is the exact same thing we did before, right? We had a URL session, we created a download task. The only difference is last time we did with completion handler, and we had a little block that would happen when the download came back. Now, instead, our delegate's going to get called when the URL it gets loaded and comes back. Does everyone understand the difference between what we did before and what we're doing here? Okay, no completion handler. Here we're going to use a delegate. So let's look at what that delegate looks like. It looks like this. Okay, there are 3 methods in it. These 3 methods right here. One is your file just finished downloading, and here it is as a local file. So this looks a lot like that completion handler. And then here's a couple that we're not going to use, like giving you, this gives you some progress, how many bytes it's read so far, if it does it in chunks. And this also, download sessions can get interrupted and then resumed. We're definitely not going to talk about that, but anyway. Now you can see I have an error here. Okay, so what do we do? So this is what we would have done in our completion handler. And all we're going to do here is we are going to get the context, our little photo database context that we set up there in application to finish launching. We are going to download those photos from Flickr. So Flickr photos is this, which you're very used to, right? Data with contents of URL, JSON, de-JSONize it, grab the results out of that. Okay? So we're going to do that little thing. This needs to be happening, this is a local URL, so it can be happening on the main thread, no problem. Now we're going to do something in this context, and notice I'm doing perform block. I didn't do perform block over in the photo creating one because it's kind of implicit. I'm creating a photo. Of course, I'm doing it on that context. So whoever calls that would want to do it in perform block, and that's in fact what I'm doing here. I'm calling that method we just wrote, load photos with Flickr data. Okay? We didn't actually write that method, so let's look at that. So that's over here. All right, we had photo with Flickr info, and here's loading the photos. So how do we load the photos? I'm just going to say for NS dictionary photo in photos. Okay, so give me each Flickr photo one by one, and then self photo with Flickr info photo in managed context. Now this turns out to be really inefficient way of loading those 100 Flickr photos, because every time I call this, I am doing a fetch. So if I want to load 100 photos, I can do 100 fetches to see if those are unique. Okay, there are much better ways to do this, and one of your extra credit items is for you to try and figure out a better way to do this. Okay, and one way is to look at the unique IDs of all 100 photos, fetch them all at once, see which ones are in the database. Because you can get a list of them back, right, the ones that are in there. And then you can, one by one, you can go and create the ones that aren't there. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Okay, but this cheap and simple way is good for a demo. Okay, so back to our app delegate. And now we have this load photos with Flickr array. Let's go ahead and import that header file, which I do. Oh, maybe I called it something different there. What's the problem? Let's see. Yeah, I probably called it something different. Copy. Call it the same thing. Where's my delegate? Here it is. Hey, there we go. I called it load photos from Flickr array. Okay, so that's going to load all these photos. Notice I'm saving my context here. Okay, this is a method in NS managed object context which saves it. This is an error which I'm ignoring. Don't really need to do this for your UI managed document, but it doesn't hurt. You can do it if you want. This would not break anything if you had a context from UI managed document, but mine's not, so that's why I'm explicitly saving it here after I load some photos in. Okay. Okay, so that's cool. So let's go look at our table. What is our table's public API? Managed object context. We never set that. Okay, we need to set this table's managed object context. Okay, when and how are we going to do that? We have this application delegate. It's kind of this global thing, and it is managing this global database, but it needs to be able to communicate this thing out to anyone who needs to use it. And the way we're going to do that is whenever we set this photo database context, we are going to post a notification, the radio station thing. So this is the first time you're going to see how to post a notification. Not just listen with add observer, you're going to actually post it right here. So let's do that. And when you post a notification, you almost always, 100% of the time, want to create a header file. So I'm going to create a header file. Just go here to header file, C++ header file. And that header file is going to contain the name of the notification and also the name of anything that's in the user info for the notification. So let's go ahead and make sure it's in the right place. It is. I'm going to call this photo database availability because that's what this notification is about. This radio station talks about whether the photo database is available. So I'm going to create this header file. And inside this header file, I'm just going to put two pound defines. One is photo database availability notification. That's the name of the notification. I'm going to call it this. Call it anything I want, but I'm going to call it that. And then also, when the notification goes out, I'm going to include the context in the radio station broadcast. So the person can just get it when they get the notification. And I'll do that with photo database availability context. And I'll use the same, well, I'll just say context. It can be anything we want there. Okay, so this is going to be the name of the notification. This is going to be the key into the dictionary of information that comes along with the notification. All right, so now let's send that notification. And I'm going to do that every time we set this photo database context. Question?
For your context static thing, you had equals context, whereas with the other one you didn't have equals. So I assume one of them is not how you intended it.
Oh, yeah, probably. Good point. Yeah, no equals there. Context. Very good. Okay, this is just a pound sign define. If it was a const, I'd be doing that. Okay. All right, so let's set this photo database context. So in the set, I think I might have a thing for that actually, set photo database. Yeah, I do. So here when we set this photo database context, we are going to post this notification. And we do that is using the NS Notification Center default center post notification name. We just specify the name, which is this. For this to work, we need to import that photo database availability header. Okay, so we're just going to post this notification, and we're going to give this user info along with it. And the user info is just a dictionary that has one key, which is that context, and the value of that key is the context. Okay, so this is how you post in the radio station model. Any questions about that? And now I'm going to show you listening to a radio station without having to create another method and all this stuff. Basically, really straightforward listening. And who needs to listen to this? Well, this guy does. This photographer's guy, he needs to listen to it. So basically, as soon as this guy awakes, and I might do this in its init with style or whatever the designated initializer is for a table view, but I'm just going to do it in awake for nib for here because we know this table view is coming out of the storyboard. I'm just going to say notification center. First, let's import that availability thing. So I'm going to do NS notification center, default center. Watch this, add observer. Normally we do it with a selector and all this stuff. I'm going to do a block-based one, and I couldn't show you this before because you didn't know blocks, but it's this one. Add observer for name, and we give the name, which is photo database availability notification. The object is who can send it, and I'll let anyone send it.